Welcome into the Before the Shot podcast with me, Zach Sardenik. I'm here with Dayton Jones and Terry McCord. We're going to be bringing NBA talk to you guys 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Episodes dropping mid-afternoon. But first, we're going to give ourselves a chance to introduce ourselves. So, Dayton, why don't you go ahead and tell them who you are and what you're about.
So, hi, my name's Dayton. I'm not going to give you a whole spiel, but I'm a college student. I go to Michigan State like Zach. I'm studying business, and I just love the NBA. So I'm just here to talk about the NBA with my friends and have a good time. Terry?
Yeah, so my name's Terry. College student as well. I go to LCC, which is like the neighbor of Michigan State. I'm going to be at MSU pretty soon, but I love the NBA, love talking about it, love starting taking takes and arguing about it, friendly arguments, but I'm glad to be here with my boys and talk about hoops.
I'm Zach. I'm a sports broadcasting student at Michigan State, and I'm hoping this is going to be a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you guys can interact with us. We love to hear you guys. Hit us up on socials and let us know what you guys want to hear or what we want to talk about. First, we're going to jump into some recaps from last night's game and a couple of takeaways from last night. There were a lot of games, boys. So I'll just go through and I'll read off some scores, and then we can get the takeaways. The Knicks moving to 2-2, knocking off the Cavs 95-86. Warriors picking up their second straight win, 116-106 over the Pistons. Celtics with a 116-111 win over the Pacers. 76ers 100-93 over the Raptors. Bulls winning their first game of the season over the Wizards, who have fallen to 0-4, 115-107. Bucks dominating the Heat, 144-97. Magic 118-107 over the Thunder. Suns 111-86 over the Pelicans. Clippers 124-101 over the Timberwolves. And in the late game, the Kings knocking off the Nuggets 125-115.
So, yeah, I mean, just the first takeaway.
All right, so let me say one of my first. Oh, Terry, you go.
All right, but I mean, first off, I mean, the fact that the Raptors are still winless at this point, I mean, I think the game against the Spurs, would kind of be like their breaking point of getting their first win of the season. But, I mean, the Raptors 0-4 right now, like, I would not be able to put that into thought at this point of the season right now.
Why y'all think I said – remember, Zach, when we made that Eastern Conference prediction? I said they weren't going to be in the playoffs.
Today. Don't spoil it too much. But Dayton, that's coming in our next segment. We're going to go through the Eastern Conference, our predictions for the playoffs, 1 through 10 this year due to the playing games. Dayton giving a little bit of a sneak peek, not very high on the Raptors.
I'm not. My takeaway was the Kings team. I think they can be a dark horse team that skips the play-in. So maybe they could be a 6 seed. That's how good I think they can be. With Halliburton and Marvin Bagley coming back. And, dude, the pick and roll between Halliburton and Holmes looked amazing. Terry, did you watch the game?
Yeah, I thought Holmes played pretty well. I like Halliburton's game coming out of Iowa State. I thought he was a good combo guard. He plays well on defense, but a lot of people were talking about his shot, and I shared you guys that tweet about what he said. Like, they said my shot wouldn't translate, and I mean, he has that drive, so it looks weird, but it's going in. That's all that matters.
They said it, I thought it was going to be slow, but he kind of just, like, has it high shoots, He just kind of has it already.
Yeah, it's like it
was like a fast release. It's weird.
I've said a lot about Halliburton.
It's unorthodox, but it goes in.
I've said a lot about Halliburton when he was coming out of Iowa State. He had that potential. He had one of the highest floors to me in the draft. Not necessarily one of the highest ceiling guys. That would belong to Wiseman, LaMelo, Edwards, a couple of those other guys. But he had one of the highest floors. And I think the Kings got a perfect fit with him right alongside De'Aaron Fox. My takeaway from last night was, 1, Kelly Oubre made a 3. So that streak is over. And 2, the Warriors are starting to find themselves a little bit around Steph Curry. Andrew Wiggins putting in 27 points. If he can really become that second option for them, especially once Draymond Green gets back, and they're hopeful he'll be back for their game on Friday night against the Trailblazers. Once Draymond Green gets back, if Andrew Wiggins can really start to solidify himself and James Wiseman can continue to play well, even though he was in foul trouble last night, if those two guys can continue to build up around Steph Curry, the Warriors are not going to be a finals contender or a contender to win the West without Klay Thompson, but they should be a playoff team.
Yeah, and I like this year how they had the play-in implemented, kind of similar to the bubble, how they had the 8 and 9 seeds kind of play into that last playoff spot. But I mean, at this point, like I said about my Cavs, I mean, just give your team a chance to get into that playing game. Anything can happen. I mean, it's 2020. We've seen this all year. So
I bet that Knicks loss hurt you yesterday, Terry.
yeah, it did. I mean, Colin and Darius have a lot, to learn late game situations. I don't really like our bigs. I mean, their touch around the rim kind of needs to improve. I've seen a lot of missed shots inside the arc and around the paint, but it's something that we'll improve on. Colin will learn, trust his teammates a little bit better, and Darius will hit more shots. So we'll see. Hopefully, we put it all together.
Terry's a big
All right, I'm gonna go back.
Cavaliers fan.
He is.
Dayton's
Wait, Zach, I'm gonna go back to the Warriors for my second take.
All right.
Dude, James Harden and James Wiseman will work perfectly together. That pick and roll. Because think about Wiseman is somebody that can still guard the paint, but can still pop out and hit the three. So he would be the perfect small ball center in a sense. And I saw a trade package that the Rockets could take of Wiggins, Green, and Oubre.
Golden State's not going to give up Draymond Green. Draymond Green's the energy and the lifeblood of
Why
that.
would you give up Green for James Harden?
Because
Curry,
Draymond
Harden,
Green
and
is
Wiseman.
Draymond
Then
Green
when
is
Klay
what
Thompson gets back,
Draymond Green is
dude,
what makes
that's
the
gonna be
Warriors'
amazing.
offense work.
I don't
The Warriors'
care.
offense works with Draymond Green.
Yeah.
MVP.
It doesn't matter. How many championships does Harden have? How many championships does Draymond Green have?
He had to go through those hard Warriors teams.
I
It's
mean,
not his
The
fault.
hard
That's
Warrior
not-
teams that were made because of, in
Dude,
a big
Chris
part,
Paul
because of
didn't get hurt.
Draymond Green.
They
Draymond
would've
Green
been
is
in the finals. They would've beat
Draymond
LeBron
Green.
in the finals.
Draymond Green is not the best player on the Warriors. He never has been. But Draymond Green was always the energy of that. Why do you think that as soon as Draymond Green got suspended in that 2016 finals, that the series turned? I'm not saying that Draymond Green was the best player in that series, and I'm not taking anything away from LeBron. I'm saying that the series changed momentum when Draymond Green went out. Draymond Green came back, and the Warriors still couldn't win. So it's not that LeBron didn't do anything special. LeBron had an amazing series, and they deserved that title. But Draymond Green going out changed the momentum.
You saw him last year.
He didn't. He didn't have anyone around him, which is why I said he's not the best player on the Warriors.
I mean, the biggest thing to think about is that when you trade,
you wouldn't give up Green for Harden. You wouldn't.
I don't think they would give up Green for Harden. I don't. Not with the Warriors system.
I think you just have to think about when you trade. It's like what value am I getting to my team? And I think Golden State values James Harden's scoring ability, but I do believe that they value Draymond's defensive attitude. His I think he's like the heartbeat. He's the muscle of that team. He was the muscle for that team with KD. He was the team with the 73-9 team, but I think they value Draymond over Harden for sure.
James Wiseman can be that. You've seen flashes of it.
You have seen flashes of it, but he's not there yet. And Wiseman still has a lot to learn, and it really depends. Because the thing is if you're going all in for Harden, because if you make a trade for Harden, you're going all in to try and win a title. You don't have time to let James Wiseman learn that.
What do you mean going all in? You're giving up Oubre, Wiggins, and Green. That's those players.
Right, but I'm saying if you're making a trade for James Harden, you're trying to win a championship now.
Yeah,
and you don't have time
exactly
for James Wiseman. You don't have time for James Wiseman to develop and learn things. You need him to be ready to go now. And he's shown flashes of it, but he's also shown flashes of inconsistency, and that's to be expected. And I think James Wiseman's going to turn out to be really, really good, but you can't expect him to be this high-level player right now and want to win a title right now.
Right. Like you can't expect a rookie with a huge ceiling, but kind of a moderate floor to give you that kind of production. Because, I mean, we've seen what third options can do for a team. I know when the Cavaliers back then with LeBron and Love and Kyrie, when Love played his best, I mean, the Cavs looked unstoppable because we know we're going to get out of Kyrie. We know we're going to get out of LeBron. But if we can get that extra push from Love, we've seen what can happen. But I don't think Wiseman can really give that extra push if they give away Green.
He would be basically the fourth option starting next year when Clay comes back.
Right, but if you're making a trade for James Harden, you're already the most cap held up team in NBA history in terms of the luxury tax and everything. And then you're making a trade for James Harden.
Cap held up. They're paying Wiggins $30 million or whatever.
Right, but if you're making a trade for James Harden, you want to win now. You don't want to wait for Klay Thompson to come back. And when Klay comes back, that's going to be a really weird dynamic.
Because the Warriors want to win now, though. Hurts 30, whatever. Clay's 30.
But the Warriors' offense is built on motion and moving the ball around. The ball sticks a little more when you have a guy like James Harden because he's a ball in his hand, go get his buckets guy. And that works, but it doesn't work as well in Golden State's offense.
Harden needs to stay where he's at. I mean,
I just watched them and saw that Curry needs a second guy.
Curry does need a second guy, but James Harden's not the answer. Klay Thompson is the answer. The problem is Klay Thompson hasn't been able to be healthy the last 2 years. But I think people forget how good those two were even before KD got there. Those two guys were borderline unstoppable. I mean, they went 73-9 for a reason. Those two players could get it done. And when those two are back paired together, if Klay Thompson is still able to get his shot going, the nice thing is unlike guys like Boogie Cousins who had this injury, other things like that, Klay Thompson's bread and butter is shooting the three ball. Shooting is not – it doesn't take as much of a drive. Now, it's going to take a lot of stuff to get your feel back because your legs are like that and your jump and everything is such a rhythm thing with shooting. But – if he's able to get back to that, it's not like he's slashing and throwing down crazy dunks every game.
No, yeah, that's the thing I said about them. Those two are going to be good for a while because they don't rely on athleticism.
They really will. And that series that Golden State lost to Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors, they were winning Game 6 until Klay Thompson tore his ACL.
Yeah.
And if they win Game 6 and it goes back to Golden State, the Raptors might have won that series, but there's a chance that Golden State wins that series and wins 4 out of 5. In terms of titles. And
I think Golden State might have won, honestly. I think if they get it back to the way that Lowry's kind of inconsistent, I think the Warriors might have won.
And Lowry had a huge game in that Game 6 that closed it out. And Fred VanVleet was insane in those
finals.
There was a lot going on in that. But let's kind of move this into our next segment here, going with our Eastern Conference predictions. We're going to kind of go through – we'll get them all out. We'll give a little bit of back and forth. Dayton's going to write them down for us all.
Winner gets $10. Second place gets their money back. Deal?
Maybe. We'll talk about that later. But
I'll give it to you.
We're going to post this in the description of this video. You guys can leave yours in the comments. Give us thoughts on ours. Tear ours apart. We'd love to go back and forth with you guys. So first, I'll give my number 1 seed in the East, and I'm going to go with Milwaukee at 1.
Milwaukee?
Terry, where are you at?
At 1.
I got Milwaukee as well. I think the Nets are the better team overall, but I think Milwaukee is just a regular season team as we've seen last year.
Dayton, where are you at?
I'm going to go with Brooklyn as my number 1.
All right, snake it. Dayton, who's your 2?
Milwaukee at 2. Terry?
I got the Nets at 2.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Brooklyn at 2 as well. Okay. Although Brooklyn could slide if they continue to rest KD and Kyrie a lot. Because of the condensed season, they're resting them a lot on back-to-backs, and there's a ton of back-to-backs because of the condensed season. So they're still going to be able to make the playoffs, and they're still going to be very dangerous in the playoffs. But similar to the Clippers in the West, with load management style, they might slip a little more than they should.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So my number 3 team in the East is probably going to be I'm thinking between Philadelphia and Miami and Toronto. But Toronto doesn't look good right now, but I still think Toronto is going to be a top 6 team in the East. I'll go with Miami at 3. Even though they just got off the floor by the Bucks last night.
I think I honestly have the Celtics at 3. I know it's a little bit of a long shot, but I think Tatum's going to play well. Him and Brown, that duo is really nice. But I just don't see the way that the Heat have been playing as of late. I know Butler's out, but I think the Celtics, the way that I've seen them play against a pretty good caliber team like the Pacers, I believe that although Kemba's out, I think that with that Tatum and Brown duo can carry them over with some wins. Some tough ones.
I think that the Celtics are a top 3 team in the East, but I don't think they're going to be a top 3 seed because of Kemba's injury and the fact that he's out for a while. That's why I think that they're going to drop a little bit, maybe to the 4 or 5 spot. But Dayton, who's your three?
I feel like Jaylen Brown is catching up to Tatum in a sense. Like the distance is getting closer.
Maybe.
Between them. I love Jaylen Brown. I have Philly just because I think this is the best team that Embiid and Simmons have had around them with the shooters. And they're a dark horse team to trade for James Harden. So, James Harden will get his numbers in the regular season. So.
All right, Dayton.
Is that an early prediction?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying that I like the team that they have around them. And they're another team that could trade for Harden. And if they trade for Harden, they're going to do good anyway. So that's why I have them at 3.
I see him. I see Harden going to Philly.
I could see it. Dayton, who's your 4?
Mm-hmm. At 4, I'm going to put Miami.
So this year I got the Pacers at 4. I think the Pacers are that weird team that kind of is like pretty consistent with the 4 to 6 range. But I think this year, now that they have Oladipo for throughout the whole season, I like Oladipo and Warren together. Sabonis is that weird guy that's going to give you 31 and 18 rebounds and maybe a 5 assists or something like that to throw it. He just plays well, and I like how they gel together. I like how that team kind of roll. I like Miles Turner in the paint. He's a defensive monster. A lot of blocks, as I see in fantasy basketball, but I think they're a solid 4 seed.
Somebody said is Sabonis a top 10 or top 15 player in the league right now?
Top 15, maybe. Top 20, definitely. Not top 10.
I didn't know he had passing ability like that.
Sabonis is good. He's a Gonzaga guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's a Gonzaga guy. And those guys, it's the Gonzaga players, the Villanova players, a lot of time the Michigan State players, those are well-coached players. They get into the league, and they just do things right. They know how to play good basketball, and Sabonis is very similar to that. I'm going to stick with that as well. Indiana, I like the Pacers. I like Oladipo, and I think that they've got a lot of talent there. And as you mentioned, they're always around there. And they fired Nate McMillan last year, but they still look strong. And they showed the willingness to do some different things, pulling out the box and 1 against Jason Tatum and the Celtics, which I'd never seen in the NBA before, but they really pulled that out this year for the start, and they're off to a 3-1 start. My number 5 seed, that's when I'm going to go with Philly. I think they're well constructed. I agree with Dayton there, and I really think that they're going to be a threat, but they're going to have to face their playoff demons again. And Indiana's not going to – if that's the matchup at 4-5, that's not an easy matchup for them. And the Sixers have really struggled to get out of the first and second rounds. They haven't been to a conference championship with this nucleus yet, and it's going to be tough for them to do so again this year because the East at the top got a lot better.
It did. And I think that's why they push for a top seed so they don't have to play an Indiana or a Miami in the first round. Right. That's why they push for it.
So, Terry, who's your 5?
I got the Hawks at 5. I honestly think the Hawks are going to do well in the regular season. I'm not really sure how they'll turn out in the postseason due to experience. Like, I'm not really sure. I like their play with Trae Young. I think Bogdanovich is a really good shooter. I like the nucleus over there, what they're building. I think Trae Young is gonna have a great regular season, maybe dark horse MVP if he continues it, but I see them at maybe a top 5.
I have ATL at 5 too. I just love what they're doing around Young. That starting lineup where they have Cam Reddish at shooting guard and DeAndre Hunter, they can guard any team, honestly. And Capella in the paint. Then, and think about their bench. What Terry said: Bogdanovich, Gallinari. We still forget he's there.
Yeah.
Rondo. So who knows? At 6, I'll put Indiana at 6. I just think they're off to a hot start, but they'll cool down, honestly. Who do you have at 6, Terry?
I have the Orlando Magic, the undefeated team right now, 4-0. But I like I like Vucevic. He's a beast. I mean, he was an all-star last year. He's a guy that doesn't really get much credit for some reason. I mean, he's a guy that's solid, consistent, kind of off to a rocky start shooting the ball wise. But I mean, he's been getting solid rebounds. Markelle Fultz has been playing amazing. I love the turnaround of his career so far. I mean, he's a guy that everyone questioned his jumper. Everyone questioned if he was an NBA talent, and now he's just kind of turned everything around his play in the bubble, and I just like him at 6.
I'm still not high on him because I want to see him do this consistently. If I see him do it for like 20 games, then I'll come back to where you are. But I think it's a fluke, honestly. I watched the highlights and I saw the points he got. It didn't look like anything that jumped out at me, you know.
What about Evan Fournier? I mean, he's consistent shooter. He'll give you some a little bit of two-way, dipping into the two-way on defense maybe a little bit, but he shoots the ball.
Where have they played so far?
They played the Wizards, they played the Heat, they played the Thunder, and they played somebody else.
I think, did you say the Wizards already?
Yeah. Thunder, Wizards. They played the Wizards twice because they're doing back-to-back.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
also,
my 6, there's so many good teams, and this 6th spot's going to be really tough. I think I'm going to go with Boston. I think Boston's going to be there. And then we go into the play-in games. I'm just going to give all 4 of my play-in teams real quick, and then you guys can do the same.
Okay.
Just to kind of get through this and get into our last segment of the day. But so my 4 play-in teams, I'm going to go with Atlanta at 7. I'm going to go with Toronto at 8, Orlando at 9, and Cleveland at 10.
I like that. I have the Sixers at 7. I got the Heat at 8. I had the Raptors making it at 9, and then I have Cleveland at 10.
Wait, you have the Heat at 8?
Yeah, 8?
I got the Heat at 8. I don't really.
Wow.
I mean, what I've seen, if Duncan can consistently hit the 3 ball, which we've seen, I think he will. But I feel like just watching them, they're turning into kind of a one-dimensional kind of basketball. I mean, like they're relying heavy on the 3, which I'm not saying they can't shoot it well, but I'm saying it just looks stagnant at times, and I'm not really sold on it. I think they'll honestly probably pull off an upset. I'm not saying who or when. If they get the Bucks again, maybe it's part 2. But I don't know. I just don't really see them being as good as they were last year. I see a huge drop-off, honestly.
Who'd you say at 9 and 10 again?
Yeah, I got the Raptors at 9, and then I got my Cavaliers making that last play-in spot at 10. Because I just think they're better than the Bulls, Wizards, and Knicks.
Wizards,
even though we lost.
Yeah, they are. I have Boston at 7. Then, honestly, I'm going to go with Cleveland at 8.
Ooh.
Wow.
Orlando at 9 and Toronto at 10.
You did put them in play in this time.
Yeah.
We like it. We like the Raptors at 10.
What? You got Cleveland in at 8 over the Raptors? I mean, I'm not complaining. If you believe in my guys in Believe Land, hey. But it's just surprising. I didn't think you believed in my boys like that.
Not happening. Don't be surprised if the Knicks sneak in at 10 just because of how much Tom Thibodeau cares about the regular season and the fact that it would be the most Knicks thing ever to have one of the most loaded draft classes this year and then to sneak into the play-in and get a really bad lottery pick because they lose in the play-in. So they don't get into the playoffs, but they don't get a good lottery pick either because it's the Knicks.
It's the Knicks.
I mean, Randall, another triple-double last night. I mean, the dude's just a stat machine. I mean, I would not have drafted him on fantasy, but, I mean, the dude is just going to get you buckets. He's going to rebound the heck out the ball, and he's going to find – because of the way he slashes in, he can kick out to shooters. So I think he's like a weird, complete player in that.
They don't have shooters. They have 13 power forwards on the roster.
As much as weird as it sounds, Alfred Payton was hitting the three ball consistently last night, and it like enraged me because I'm like, the Cavs are literally all clamping on Randall just for him to kick it out. Well, Bullock was hitting his threes, we know that, but kicking out to Payton, I'm like, why is Alfred Payton hitting consistent catch and shoot threes? I mean, I was enraged. I was like, man.
I didn't watch that game that much, but what did RJ Barrett do?
RJ Barrett hit a lot of shots down the stretch. He played ball handling was an issue. Colin Sexton was getting into him. I think they got an 8-second backcourt violation just because of like things were going on in the backcourt.
I remember when I told you I said I saw him in transition once and it didn't come naturally to him. I was like, so that's why I asked you. I'm like, is he a point guard or a shooting guard in the league?
When I watched the game, he looked straight like a wing. I mean, he looked like a wing with some slashing capabilities, obviously, but I think what will improve his slashing abilities and add a plus to his game is the ball handling, because then he becomes more dynamic. He's able to go side to side a little bit well. Right now, he's just straight downhill.
And he's one-handed too. He just uses his left hand. He doesn't ever go over to his right. And he needs to learn.
That's something you see with a lot of young guys. Killian Hayes is the same way. Killian Hayes doesn't use his offhand much at all, and he's going to have to develop that for him to be a high-level player for the Pistons.
Yeah.
Now we can move into our final segment of today's first episode of the Before the Shot podcast. We're going to give ceilings and floors for the top 3 picks in this year's draft. So, Dayton, you have Anthony Edwards. You want to start it off with your ceiling and floor, and I'm going to warn you guys, Dayton will probably give a very crazy high ceiling.
Oh, my gosh. So, for Anthony Edwards' ceiling, how he plays, he has type of that D-Wade athleticism, shot-making ability, but he can pull it. He can shoot a lot better from the three-point line.
He's a much worse defender,
though. That's why I get to D-Wade, but a better shooter.
But a much worse defender.
He has defensive potential. He has defensive potential. He has the body, the length.
He does, but at this point, he's a much worse defender.
Yeah, but this is ceiling. This is not what I'm telling you what he is right now.
You're right.
I think he can be.
Yeah.
Then as the floor, I kind of have like Andrew Wiggins, that athletic dude that can score but doesn't – like a nonchalant athletic scorer, you know?
Yeah.
And like Andrew Wiggins is just okay with what he is, you know?
Yeah.
I see a lot of that in Anthony Edwards too, like potentially like if he could be another story where he has all the tools, but if he doesn't get that motor, then he could go down. But he also could be really, really high.
Yeah.
All right, I have the second one, and my ceiling, I think James Wiseman has a really, really high ceiling. He might have the highest ceiling of anyone in this draft except for maybe LaMelo Ball. Wiseman is 7'1", huge wingspan, and he's got some good ball handling ability. He's shown the ability over the last few games to hit the three-pointer. He made a play last night that really showed me a little bit of a flashes of Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't think he will be Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he made a play against the Pistons where he blocked the shot, then got it, took it coast to coast, Euro step from just inside the three-point line into a slam. And that play looked just like something I've seen in every Bucks game for the last 2 years. And if James Wiseman has that ability, he's in a system where he's able to develop. James Wiseman went to the perfect place for him in Golden State, and I think he's going to have a chance to be a really high-level ceiling player. His floor, because he's in Golden State, I think his floor is something around a JaVale McGee type player for Golden State, where he's going to be able to have some high energy and provide that. But if he's not able to develop as much, he's going to give rim protection. He's going to be able to throw down dunks. But if he's not able to develop as much, I think that's more of the player that you would see if he doesn't develop.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
You know what he's shooting from the three-point line?
Probably pretty well.
Yeah.
He's surprisingly hitting the I know opening night he kind of shot his first three, and everyone was kind of like surprised but him. He hit the three and he was like, yeah, and then he goes down, hit another corner shot, and it's like, okay, like this guy actually likes his shot right now.
He's working out with the two greatest shooters of all time.
Right.
Well, he's going to develop now. Yeah. He's shooting 63% from three.
How many shots has he taken from three, though? He's got to be he can't have taken more than 12.
It doesn't say it on the ESPN app, but I think he shot one or two a game. So it's not.
That put him at 8. That's not that many, but his shot looks good right now, which is the big thing. Is that he looks pure and he looks like he's shooting well. And he's got that confidence, which I think is going to really allow him. But we didn't really know too much about James Wiseman because we aren't seeing those private workouts before the draft. And he only played 3 games at Memphis. So he didn't really get to show that off too much. He's shooting 5 of 8 from 3 on the season. But he's shown the confidence to be able to pull those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that was the big con in his draft stock was we don't know what he brings to the table because he didn't finish. We see the high school highlights, but we know how high school and college doesn't really translate. But he looked pretty explosive in college, but that was one of my worries about him too. How is he going to translate? Is he going to be that much of a rust spot, with him translating to playing again? So,
yeah. Well, last thing on today's episode, Terry, with LaMelo Ball, ceiling and floor.
Yeah, so I got the big baller. So, the one thing about Melo, he's a 6'8" point guard. What more can I say after that? He's his playmaking ability, shot needs to get a little better, more consistent. The form is probably, I think Jella may have a better form, but his form looks decent. But I think his ceiling right now, as weird as it may sound, I think honestly it's gonna be a better Steve Nash, maybe. Steve Nash as in getting everyone involved. But I think a better scoring Steve Nash. Steve Nash can score, but I think Melo with his height ability compared against other guards, I think he may be able to score the ball more once he learns how to maybe be more physical and consistent around the rim. I think he can be a better scoring Steve Nash just because he's taller. Steve Nash is not going in there on, the centers and the big guys in there, but Melo can. He's dunking, he's getting flashy in there, but I think his floor is kind of more of a Goran Dragic, maybe, a Ricky Rubio, kind of a guy who just is around, getting players involved, coming off the bench, and kind of because that was Rubio's thing, coming in, being a playmaker when he came with the Wolves. So I think he's Melo's kind of around there for his floor. I think as of right now, he just needs to continue to play well in his minutes, continue to gain trust from his coaches, front office, and continue to play, work on his shot, or maybe tweak the form. Sometimes it looks a little sideways when he shoots, but keep it straight, keep his head straight, and stay out of trouble, as rookies do. So,
I definitely agree, and
I told Kate. Go ahead, Zach.
I think that the Hornets are a sneaky team in the East too, because they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. LaMelo Ball throwing lobs to Miles Bridges, and those other guys Bridges can throw it down, and LaMelo can find him, and they're going to put on some shows at some points this year, as evidenced when they beat the Nets.
Trade there. one like trading a Graham or a Rozier to make space for Melo Ball while their trade stock is high?
I think more so Rozier. I told you. I remember we were talking about that, and I think Rozier might be playing himself into some trade bait conversation. I think he's been playing well. Opening night against the Cavs, he dropped 42, hitting 10 threes. So that shooting like that is definitely going to get some front office people looking in and seeing that.
Clippers need a point guard like that, don't they? Instead of a Pat Bev.
I honestly would maybe I think preference-wise I'd take Rozier over Pat Bev, but I don't know how it would fit for them. Maybe they like Pat Bev. I mean, honestly, for them to have Patrick Beverley, not really much of anything that brings to the table, but they haven't really voiced any concern, or not many people have voiced any concern of like, oh man, we need to upgrade from Pat Bev. Maybe they like the fit. I don't know, but I would take Rozier over Pat Bev in a heartbeat.
When you're a contending team and you have star power, those pieces are about more fit than talent. You can have a bajillion talented players in the world, but if they don't fit together, it's not going to work. You need players that fit well together, and Patrick Beverley's defense and his attitude and his energy helps them a lot.
Right. But I feel like that team needs a playmaker. They don't really have a playmaker in that starting unit. Who's it, Paul George?
I mean, they get stagnant. They get stagnant.
You're right, but Patrick Beverley, trading away Patrick Beverley is kind of
I'm not necessarily saying trade away Patrick Beverley. He can still come off the bench. I'm just saying if Rozier comes in and fits into the starting.
What package would you offer for Rozier?
Yeah.
Because I don't really have much to offer.
I'm just like throwing out names. Morris, Kennard.
Kennard just signed a huge contract.
I know, but they can flip that contract for Rozier after 30 days or whatever it is.
I'm not saying the Clippers are going to do. I'm saying the Hornets aren't going to want to take Kennard's contract.
So maybe like a Marcus Morris because the Hornets need another wing. If that makes sense. Maybe. I don't know. It's just throwing out ideas.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know. Maybe Kemba doesn't get back healthy and he finds his way back on the Celtics. Maybe. Then just throwing it out there. Maybe. I think Rozier played. They did take the Cavs to 7 games with Rozier playing how he's playing now. Maybe.
Terry. But, all right. It's been fun, guys. This is going to do it for the first episode of the Before the Shot podcast. We'll be back every day, Monday through Friday, with recaps and other fun stuff. Let us know if you want to hear anything. Drop a comment, leave a like, let us know.
We'll put the socials down in the description.
Yep. We'll follow us on socials, hit us up. And thanks for listening, guys.